The taste of lightning's first strike came not as a warning, but as a declaration. It split the heavens like a sword-rending silk, a vein of pure white fire cracking the swollen belly of the storm. Sound followed only after, a roar that made the stones beneath their feet quiver, as if even the mountain remembered fear. Mara stood at the edge of the aqueduct, rain cascading down her face, her arms stretched wide as though she sought to embrace the violence of the sky. She had known storms before, petty tempests that battered the coast or rolled across barren plains. But this storm was something else. It was not a passing weather. It was a visitation, a presence, a guard descending in hunger, and it had a taste. Sharp, metallic, like iron on the tongue, like biting down on a blade. The air shimmered with it, every breath was fire wrapped in cold. Every heartbeat carried the echo of thunder. Mara thought, so this is what Prometheus swallowed when he stole. The flame, not warmth, not comfort, but this wild, unbearable electricity, this raw wound in the sky. Behind her, the caravan huddled. The storm made shadows of them all. Thorne's hand was clenched on the hilt of his blade, though he knew no steel could cut lightning. Alex, the watcher of Ember Bridge, did not flinch, his eyes reflecting the branching scars of light as though he were memorizing scripture. Leo clutched the coffer of memory, guarding it as though thunder itself might try to pry it from his grasp. Get back under the stone. Thorne shouted over the roar. His voice was steady, but Mara heard the edge of fear sharpen it. You'll be struck. I came to taste it, Mara said, her voice raw, nearly lost in the cacophony. And so must we all, the storm seemed to answer her. Another bolt unfurled across the blackness, illuminating the valley like a scroll unfurled for a single instant, then swallowed again. Each strike painted the gorge with fleeting clarity, cliffs, trees bent like supplicants, the ruins of the old aqueduct bridging one shadow to another. For one breath, it was all revealed. The next breath, gone dark, it was not destruction the storm, or fur, but revelation. The lightning struck the aqueduct, stone shuddering beneath their boots. Dust exploded from the cracks, mingling with rain. The smell of ozone was thick, almost unbearable, but Mara only inhaled deeper, as though she could swallow the essence of the storm itself. This is madness, Thorne muttered, pulling his cloak tighter, though he never took his eyes off her. No, Alex said quietly. His voice was almost drowned by the thunder, but it cut through, calm and certain. This is initiation. The storm is a question. She dares to answer, Leo frowned, hugging the coffer. And what happens if the storm does not like the answer? Then the storm remembers her, Alex replied, lightning again, so close Mara could feel the hairs on her arms rise, every nerve straining like a bowstring. For a moment, she was suspended, between strike and silence, between death and awakening. In that breathless space, she saw it, a figure bound in chains, high upon a cliff, ribs torn open to the endless sky. Prometheus, tormented, yet unbroken, his eyes alight with defiance. But in her vision, the eagle that tore at him was made of lightning, a bird woven from thunder, its talons sparks, its cry a rending crack. And Prometheus did not curse, he did not beg, he only smiled, as if every strike of the storm was a reminder that the gift had been worth the cost. Mara fell to her knees, not from fear but from weight, the unbearable weight of vision. Rain plastered her hair to her face, water running into her eyes, but she did not close them. The taste of lightning, she whispered. It is the taste of chains breaking. The storm rolled deeper into the night. The caravan dared not move. They watched Mara kneeling on the aqueduct, a figure drowned yet illuminated, her silhouette outlined again and again by heaven's fire. The sky had become a battlefield of veins and scars, a vast body torn open by its own pulse, and yet there was rhythm to it. With each flash, Mara felt the storm less as an enemy and more as a teacher. Each strike was a lesson written in light, the fragility of stone, the strength of surrender, the courage to taste what burns. At last, she rose, slow but steady. Her eyes blazed, not with madness, but with the clarity of one who has seen both wound and gift at once. We cannot run from this storm, she said. We must walk through it. To fear the lightning is to forget that we are already fire bearers. Prometheus did not give us warmth to comfort us. He gave us flame to make us dangerous, even to the guards. Silence met her, broken only by the endless rain. Some looked at her as if she were cursed. Others as if she had become something untouchable. Thorne said nothing, only watched her with the gaze of one who sees both the abyss and the bridge across it. Then, as if to punctuate her words, lightning struck again, but this time, no one flinched. The caravan moved as a single body now, drawn into the storm not by choice, but by inevitability. The aqueduct crumbled behind them in fragments, stone teeth swallowed into the black gorge below. To stay was death, to move forward was to gamble with guards. And so they walked, each step a petition, each breath a vow. The watcher, Ilex, led the way, his staff glowing faintly, though it shed no true light against the furious sky. It was not illumination they needed, but presence. His calm stood against the chaos like an anchor in a shifting sea. Beside him, Mara walked as though tethered, not to earth but to the lightning itself, her stride unbroken despite the torrent. She seemed less a traveller now, and more an emissary, carrying in her veins the echo of the storm's own pulse. Behind them, Thorne bore the silence of iron. His mind was a battlefield, torn between duty and fear. He had sworn to protect, yet how does one shield another from heaven's hand? Each crack of thunder marked the blade at his hip, a reminder that steel was nothing here. Still, he watched Mara with a soldier's eye, searching for the moment when her courage might dissolve into folly. Leo trailed last. The Corvo pressed to his chest as though it contained not memories, but his very heartbeat. To him, the storm was no teacher, no gift. It was a thief waiting to strip him bare, to tear open what he guarded most. And yet, even as terror hollowed his steps, he could not turn back. The bridge of stone had become a bridge of fire, and retreat was swallowed. In ash, the path narrowed where the aqueduct bent, half of its stones fallen into the abyss. Here, the gorge yawned widest, the river below a black ribbon streaked with foam, its roar drowned by the greater thunder above. We cannot cross this, Leo shouted, clutching the corfer. One bolt, and the whole span collapses. Mara turned to him, her face lit by a sudden fork of white. In that moment she seemed carved of storm herself, featured sharp as shattered glass. Do you not see, the bridge has always been breaking? Life itself is the narrow crossing. The lightning does not destroy, it reminds us how thin the stones beneath us truly are. Her words struck harder than thunder, for each knew them to be true. Every journey, every vow, every step across the abyss was already peril. The storm only stripped away the illusion of safety, and yet it was Thorne who acted. Without waiting for assent, he stepped onto the broken span. His boots ground against loose stone, his shoulders squared against the wind. He moved not quickly, but steadily, as though daring the storm to choose him. Lightning licked the sky above, illuminating his figure like a statue of defiance. Follow, he commanded, his voice booming louder than thunder itself. One by one, they did. Mara next, her stride unhesitating, eyes burning with revelation. Ilex after, his calm presence steadying those who wavered. Even Leo, trembling, clutching his burden, as though it might shield him, followed, for to remain was death, and to step forward, though death's twin was also hope. Halfway across, the storm shifted dark. It was no longer random bolts, no longer wild fury scattered upon the earth. The lightning began to strike with rhythm, with intention. Each blast landed not upon stone, but near them, carving symbols of fire into the cliffs, into the shattered walls of the aqueduct. Spirals, circles, jagged runes older than any tongue. The gorge became a tablet, enlightening the quill of some forgotten hand. Mara staggered as the vision seized her. She saw the symbols glowing long after the bolts faded, as though seared into her own veins. And in that light, Prometheus again, not bound this time, but standing up on a high ridge, chains broken, lightning in his hands. No eagle tore at him. Instead, the bird of thunder perched at his side, no longer tormentor, but companion. The storm whispered, not punishment, covenant. Mara gasped, gripping the edge of the aqueduct to steady herself. She understood now, fire was never a gift alone, nor theft alone. It was a pact between mortal and divine, a bridge forged in suffering, but sustained by courage. when she looked back at her companions, their faces lit by stormfire, she knew they too were bound in this covenant. The lightning was not meant to kill them, it was meant to mark them, and already the taste of it was on their tongues. Halfway across, the storm shifted dart. It was no longer random bolts, no longer wild fury scattered upon the earth. The lightning began to strike with rhythm, with intention. Each blast landed not upon stone, but near them, carving symbols of fire into the cliffs, into the shattered walls of the aqueduct. Spirals, circles, jagged runes older than any tongue. The gorge became a tablet, enlightening the quill of some forgotten hand. Mara staggered as the vision seized her. She saw the symbols glowing long after the bolts faded, as though seared into her own veins, and in that light, Prometheus again, not bound this time, but standing up on a high ridge, chains broken, lightning in his hands. No eagle tore at him. Instead, the bird of thunder perched at his side, no longer tormentor, but companion. The storm whispered, not punishment, covenant. Mara gasped, gripping the edge of the aqueduct to steady herself. She understood now, fire was never a gift alone, nor theft alone. It was a pact between mortal and divine, a bridge forged in suffering, but sustained by courage. When she looked back at her companions, their faces lit by stormfire, she knew they too were bound in this covenant. The lightning was not meant to kill them, it was meant to mark them. And already, the taste of it was on their tongues. Asterisk the bridge groaned beneath their steps, stone weeping under the lash of wind and water. Each bolt of lightning did not merely strike, it spoke, a voice without words, a sermon that shook marrow. The rain no longer fell as droplets, but as needles, piercing through cloak and skin, reminding them with every sting that they were alive. And that life itself was an unending storm. Mara moved first, her gaze fixed not on the stones beneath her, but on the vault of heaven. She had ceased to see herself as flesh crossing stone. She was now a thread pulled between sky and earth, her body a needle stitching covenant into the fabric of the world. Every step was an oath, every breath was defiance. Thorne followed close, his jaw set in silence. He did not speak, for words seemed hollow here. Yet, inside him churned the forge of memory, battles fought, oaths sworn, comrades lost to storms less holy but no less cruel. He had never prayed to the gods, he had only cursed them. But tonight, though his lips spoke nothing, his heart uttered a wordless vow. If lightning claims us, let it find us unbroken. Behind them, Alex walked as though in meditation, his staff glistening with rain, his eyes steady. He alone seemed unshaken. But in truth, the storm burned through him as through the others. To him, every flash was scripture written anew, every rumble of thunder a psalm of judgment. And yet, unlike others who might tremble before divine wrath, he saw only invitation. For he knew that gods did not speak in whispers, but in fire. Leo came last, staggering, burdened not only by the coffer, but by the terror that gnawed at him. His eyes darted to every crack of light, every trembling stone. To him, the storm was no revelation, it was a predator. Yet, even as fear clung to him like wet cloth, he continued. For he feared most of all not the storm's teeth, but being left behind in its shadow. Halfway across the gorge, the storm changed. The lightning no longer struck at random, but carved deliberate lines upon the cliffs. Spirals of fire seared into stone, luminous even after the bolts faded, circles intersected by jagged strokes. Symbols that pulsed like living wounds. Mara halted, breath stolen, as the vision seized her again. She saw the spirals not as marks, but as paths, wheels within wheels, fire turning upon itself. And in the center of those wheels stood Prometheus, chains shattered, his body alight with scars that were not wounds but stars, and beside him, the thunderbird, no longer raptor but herald. Its wings spread wide, woven from arcs of light, each feather a vein of fire. It no longer tore his flesh, it crowned him. Together, Titan and Storm Beast looked down upon the mortal world, and their gaze was not wrath, but kinship. The covenant, the storm whispered through the marrow of her bones. Not theft, not punishment, covenant. Mara stumbled to her knees, clutching the stones. The lightning had carved itself not only into the cliffs, but into her veins. She could taste it now, deeper than tongue-sharp, bitter, sweet, alive, the taste of chains breaking, the taste of fire unbound. Thorne reached for her arm, steadying her, but when he saw her eyes, he froze. They were alight with stormfire, irises fractured with veins of silver. She looked less human, more myth, as though the storm itself had chosen her as vessel. "Mara," he began, but she shook her head. "No, do you not see? We are already marked. The storm has named us." Alex raised his staff, pointing to the burning symbols upon the cliffs. "Not only us, the gorge itself, the path forward has become scripture. To cross is not to survive, it is to accept." Leo shuddered, clutching the coffer to his chest. "And if we refuse?" Lightning answered him, a bolt so close it split stone not 10 paces away, shattering a section of aqueduct into the abyss. The sound deafened, the shockwave knocking them to their knees. Dust and rain filled the air like smoke after battle. No one spoke again. The storm had spoken for them. The last stretch of the bridge lay ahead, a ruin half devoured by time. Each stone was sleek, treacherous, trembling beneath their weight. Yet with every step, they felt less like wanderers and more like initiates, each stride carrying them deeper into the covenant the storm demanded. Mara led, her body trembling, but her spirit aflame. To her, every drop of rain was now wine, every crack of lightning a trumpet. She no longer feared falling. For she knew, even in the abyss, fire could bloom dark, and in the distance, beyond the far end of the aqueduct, a new light burned, neither torch nor bolt, but a glow steady and golden, waiting like a promise. The storm had not come to kill them. It had come to guide them. The aqueduct narrowed to a knife edge, each stone slab seeming to float above the abyss rather than rest upon it. The gorge beneath was no longer river but darkness incarnate, a maw swallowing all echoes. Every gust of wind threatened to hurl them into that blackness. Every tremor in the ancient stone felt like a breath away from ruin. And yet, they did not falter. For ahead lay the light, steady, golden, unwavering. It glowed as though the storm itself had birthed it, a child of thunder cradled in the hands of earth. Mara was the first to see its true shape. Through the veil of rain she glimpsed not a flame, nor lantern, but a pillar slender, rising from the far cliff's edge, carved of stone but burning within her fire. It did not flicker, it did not waver, it simply was, an eternal flame bound in form, defying both storm and night. Her heart leapt, for she understood. This was no beacon lit by mortals. This was the storm's heart made visible. The Covenant's altar, behind her. Thorne narrowed his eyes. A trap, he muttered to himself, for his soldier's mind trusted nothing so radiant. Yet even he could not deny the pull it exerted, the gravity of meaning it radiated. Alex slow, bowing his head slightly, as though in reverence. Not altar, witness, the storm writes, but the pillar remembers. Leo clutched the coffer tighter, his knuckles white. He could not bear the thought that what he carried, his fragile vault of memory, might pale before this eternal one, his. Fear twisted into envy, envy into dread. For what need had the world of his little relic, when mountains themselves could burn with remembrance? The storm gathered once more as they drew near the final span. Bolts raked the heavens in deliberate arcs, weaving lattice of fire that framed the pillar like a crown. Thunder no longer roared, but rang, clear as iron struck on an anvil, rhythm echoing the pulse of the earth itself. And then came the trial. The aqueduct ended not in steady ground, but in ruin. Half the final stretch had collapsed into the abyss, leaving a gap of nearly 5 paces. Beyond it, the last stones clung to the far cliff, narrow and broken, but leading directly to the pillar of light. They halted, each one staring at the void. Rain hammered them, lightning carved their shadows, and the gorge yawned like a hungry guard. "No one can cross that," Leo whispered, trembling, his arms wrapped around the coffer as if it might shield him from the truth. "It's madness." Mara stepped forward, the storm fire still burning in her gaze. "No, it is invitation." Thorne caught her arm, his grip iron. "Invitation to die, perhaps. There is no rope, no plank, no way across, but Alex shook his head. "There is always a bridge. Some are stone, some are fire, some are faith." His staff glowed faintly, though no flame touched it. The words seemed to root themselves in the air, heavier than thunder. Mara looked again at the gap. The abyss was wide, yes, but not infinite. The storm's rhythm beat in her blood, and with each pulse she felt the distance shrink, not in measure but in meaning. She thought of Prometheus' chains shattered, wings of lightning unfurled, and knew that crossing was not about strength of limb, but strength of covenant. She turned to her companions. The storm does not ask for certainty, it asks for surrender. Her cloak whipped around her, rain plastering it to her skin. She took 3 steps back, her boots scraping against wet stone. Then, without another word, she ran. Time seemed to shudder. Her feet left the aqueduct, and for a hot beat she was nothing, neither flesh nor thought, only spark. Lightning tore the sky above, and for that instant she was its mirror, a streak of fire leaping across the void. She landed hard on the far side, knees buckling, palms scraping against stone. But she was across, and as she rose, the pillar flared. Brighter, acknowledging her, the storm itself seemed to pause, as if watching. Thorne cursed, low and fierce. His soldier's mind raged against it, but his stubborn, battered heart drove him forward. He stepped back, drew a breath that tasted of blood and lightning, and charged. He leapt, armor dragging him earthward, weight pulling at his very soul. For a hot beat, he thought he would fall. But a bowl cracked above him, and in its white blaze he felt lighter, borne not by his legs, but by defiance itself. He crashed beside Mara, rolling to his feet with a snarl. One by one, they followed. Ilex came with calm grace, stepping into the air as though the abyss itself bowed to his passage. Leo, trembling, waited longest, clutching the coffer until his nails cut skin. His leap was clumsy, desperate, nearly short, but Mara's hand caught his wrist, hauling him onto the stones. His tears mingled with rain, but he was across. They stood now at the pillar's base, the storm roaring behind them, the abyss at their backs. Before them burned the eternal fire, silent, golden, waiting. The pillar loomed before them, taller than any tower, its surface smooth yet etched with rivers of fire flowing within. It was stone, yet not stone, flame, yet not flame. The light it shed was not like torchlight, nor like the flash of lightning, but something stranger, a glow that did not chase away shadow, but embraced it, weaving brightness and darkness into one. The storm above hushed as they approached. Rain still fell, but softer now, as though the heavens themselves held their breath. The abyss behind them no longer seemed to rage, it merely waited. All sound shrank to a single pulse, the heartbeat of the pillar. Mara reached out first. Her hand trembled, though not with fear but with awe. As her fingers brushed the surface, the fire within leapt outward, not to burn, but to enter. A current surged into her veins, searing and sweet, and her knees buckled under its weight. She gasped, tasting it sharp like iron, wild like storm water, sweet like honey stolen from a forbidden's hive. It was the taste of chains breaking, of lungs spilling after drowning. The taste of lightning dot, and with it came vision. She saw herself not as wanderer, not as daughter of dust, but as flame walking upright, wings unfurled behind her, wings not a feather but of light, woven from the very bolts that scarred the heavens. She was both storm and seed, destruction and promise. For in every fire lay ash, and in every ash lay roots. When she pulled her hand back, her eyes burned with silver fire. She could still taste it on her tongue. She whispered, voice raw, I know now why Prometheus endured. The fire was never theft, it was gift paid for in blood. Thorne stepped forward, reluctant yet compelled. His hand, calloused from war, pressed against the glowing stone. The surge hit him like a blade. He staggered, nearly torn in two by its force, but in that tearing, he stood again upon battlefields long past, corpses littered like broken statues. The cries of the fallen rang in his ears, not enemies, not comrades, but simply voices, equal in their silence. He had always borne war like a shield upon his back, telling himself it was duty. But the lightning stripped him bare, showing that beneath duty had always been fear, fear of stillness, fear of being nothing. And yet, in that lightning, he also saw his truth. His scars were not chains, but maps, tracing where he had stood against storms and survived. The lightning did not mark his wounds. It crowned them. When he pulled away, his breath was ragged, but his eyes shone with something Mara had never seen. In him, not anger, not defiance, but peace. "I thought I carried only death," he said, voice low, "but even death can be seed. Even loss can be soil." Alex followed, calm as ever, though his grip on the staff trembled. His palm touched the pillar, and the light flowed into him like water finding its vessel. His vision was not of battle nor chains, but of silence. He saw himself as a child, staring at stars before words had names for them. He saw centuries as pages, turning in wind, each one marked by fleeting ink. And he saw himself always at the threshold, neither writing nor erasing, only watching. The lightning asked him, "Will you only watch forever? Or will you burn your own word upon the page?" For the first time in his long life, Alex felt fear not of death, but of being forgotten. He realized the lightning was not knowledge to guard, but life to live. When he withdrew, his face was wet, though whether from rain or tears none could tell. "The fire does not preserve," he murmured. "It creates. Even memory must burn." To remain alive, last came Leo. He trembled as though the very thought of touching the pillar might tear him apart. He clutched the corfu tight, as though it might shield him. But the other's eyes were upon him, and more than that the pillar itself waited, patient, inexorable. He stepped forward, inch by inch, until at last his hand touched the glow. The fire struck him like a spear. His cry tore through the storm. Raw, human, terrified, he saw himself as he had always been, small, fragile, hiding behind relics and records, hoping that memory could make him eternal. But the lightning showed him the truth. The corfu was nothing but ashes. All that he clung to was dust. And he was more than dust. His fear was his cage, and the lightning shattered it. When he tore his hand back, he fell to his knees, sobbing, clutching the corfu not as shield, but as shell. He lifted it high, then placed it gently at the base of the pillar, leaving it there. "I am not what I carry," he whispered. "I'm what I burn." The pillar blazed brighter, as though accepting his surrender. The four stood together now, stormfire alive in their eyes, lightning still lingering on their tongues. They were no longer simply travelers, they were covenant bearers. Behind them, the bridge crumbled further, stone shattering into the abyss. Before them, the pillars lied arced upward, striking the storm itself, splitting the sky with fire. And in that blaze, they saw not ruin, but road. A path of lightning stretching beyond the horizon, leading to a place no map had ever dared to mark. Asterisk the pillar cracked open, not in ruin, but in revelation. Its light did not fade, it poured outward, spilling into the storm like a river of fire released from its dam. Arcs of lightning laced together above them, weaving not chaos but pattern. The sky ceased to be a ceiling and became a road, a bridge of burning veins stretching into the far horizon. The four stood at its threshold, breath caught in their chests. The abyss at their backs, the storm road before them, the choice as clear. As thunder, Mara stepped first. Her boots touched the woven bolts, and for a moment the fire hissed, testing her weight. Then it steadied, bearing her, carrying her forward as if she were no longer of earth but of sky. The taste of lightning lingered on her tongue, and with each step she felt wings stirring at her back, unseen but undeniable. She walked as though the storm itself claimed her as daughter. Behind her, Thorne followed, slower, heavier. Each step pressed him down, the lightning flaring angrily beneath his armor. Yet he did not falter, for each time the storm sought to cast him off. He remembered the fields of his past. The dead he thought were chains, now revealed as roots. With every stride, the lightning bent not to his strength, but to his endurance. He was a mountain walking among clouds, scarred yet unbroken. Alex entered next, staff raised. The storm recognized him, but not as it had the others. To Mara it gave wings, to Thorne it gave weight, to Alex it gave silence. Each bolt beneath his step went still, holding steady as stone. The road did not blaze for him, but dimmed, as if in reverence. He walked not as flame nor mountain, but as witness. Every step etched itself upon him, words of fire written in the marrow of his bones. And Leo. Leo hesitated. The road stretched before him, endless and radiant, but his knee shook. His eyes flicked back to the Corver, no longer his, lying quiet at the pillow's base, swallowed by light. His cage was gone. He was naked before the storm. Fear surged, and yet, so did hunger. With a soul, he stepped onto the fire. The lightning screamed beneath him, lashing like wild serpents, but it did not throw him down. For though he trembled, though he doubted, he moved. And in that movement, the storm found truth. His weakness became its music. Each step was a chord, dissonant yet beautiful, the melody of a soul unchained. The four walked together now, figures of ash and fire moving across a sky road that stretched forever. Below them the abyss boiled, above them the storm crowned them. In radiance, the road was not smooth. At times it cracked, forcing them to leap across gaps where fire roared like oceans. At times it forked, splitting into mirages of choice, demanding faith over sight. At times it rose, carrying them into heights where the air burned thin and stars seemed within reach. And with each trial, the lightning spoke not in words, but in flavor. To Mara it gave sweetness, the taste of honey at the edge of a blade. The promise of creation born through destruction. To Thorne it gave salt, the taste of sweat and blood. The savor of labor that turns wounds into soil. To Ilex it gave still water, a taste both bitter and clean, memory's cup filled not with ash, but with life. To Leo it gave fire itself, acrid, scalding, yet leaving behind a strange aftertaste of freedom. They did not speak, for their tongues were busy with thunder. Yet they understood one another more deeply than words had ever allowed. They were for voices in one chord, carried across the storm. Asterisk at last, the road narrowed again. The horizon ahead no longer glowed white, but gold. The lightning thinned, weaving itself into a single thread, taut and trembling, leading into a radiance too great to see. The storm had not ended. It had only led them here to a threshold beyond which even thunder dared not speak. They halted, breath ragged, hearts beating not with fear but with anticipation, for they knew the storm was not their enemy, it was their guide, and what lay beyond was not the end of their journey, but its beginning. The golden thread stretched before them, vibrating with a power that was not merely seen but felt, coursing through every nerve, every bone. It was no longer lightning, nor stone, nor storm. It was the bridge between what was and what could be, a threshold forged in fire, tempered in fear, baptized in revelation. Mara stepped forward, letting the golden path embrace her. The taste of lightning clung to her tongue still, sharp and sweet, echoing like music inside her chest. She felt the storm's covenant settle into her bones, a pact older than memory, older than mountains. She was fire, and she was sea. She was beginning and end entwined. Thorne followed, each step a hammer blow to his old fears. The lightning had already marked him, now the golden thread affirmed it. His past battles, his losses, even his doubts, they were no longer chains, but maps. He was a man reborn in the storm, carrying the taste of lightning like armor no sword could pierce. Ilex walked with measured grace, his staff guiding him, though he needed no guidance. The golden path bent to him in quiet deference. He felt the memory of centuries in his veins, yet in this moment he was new, not watcher, not guardian, not observer of others' fates, only participant. Only alive. Leo stepped last, still trembling. The Corver remained behind, a relic surrendered to the storm. When his foot touched the golden thread, the lightning erupted within him, tasting fire and freedom at once. His fear dissolved into light. His voice, once silent and cautious, hummed with the song of his own existence. I am more than memory. I am flame. The four reached the end of the thread together. The storm receded, not vanished, but transformed into a chorus of distant echoes. Rain became mist, thunder softened to hum, lightning dimmed into veins of gold that shimmered on stone and stone alone. They turned, looking back across the abyss, across the broken bridge, and the path they had walked. It was gone, shattered, drowned, unrecognizable but not lost. Every crack, every shattered slab, every bolt that had tested them remained in them, etched into muscle, marrow, and heart. They had crossed not merely the gorge, but themselves. Mara lifted her face to the fading storm. We are fire bearers, she said, voice steady, tasting lightning still upon her tongue. And now the world will know our song, Thorne, Alex, and Leo nodded, each tasting their own covenant in silence. They did not speak. Words would have diminished what they carried. The storm had spoken, and they had answered dart, and as the first rays of dawn pierced the receding clouds, the golden thread faded, leaving only the taste of lightning and the promise that they would never forget. The bridge was behind them. The storm was within them. And the path ahead burned with possibility. The golden light did not merely illuminate the path, it awakened it. Stones beneath their feet shimmered with echoes of lightning, each pulse a heartbeat of the world itself. Every breath carried the scent of ozone and possibility. The storm had not ended, it had transformed, now a companion in silence rather than a predator in fury. Mara led, feeling the threads of energy coiling around her like veins of fire. Her mind, once tangled with doubt and fear, now ran clear as mountain streams. She could feel the covenant, the promise of Prometheus in every spark that kissed her skin. The taste of lightning lingered, and with it, knowledge. Power was not to possess, but to honor. Flame was not to steal, but to wield with courage. Thorne followed closely, boot steady despite the tremor of energy beneath the glowing path. His body had learned the rhythm of lightning, his heart had absorbed its lesson. No longer did he fear destruction, for he understood that survival was not the point was passage, and the measure of a man lay in whether he could walk through fire and emerge unbroken. Alex moved as one accustomed to eternity. He no longer observed from afar, he had touched the storm, and it had touched him. Memories that had weighed centuries now felt light, like ash carried on a breeze. Every step he took across the golden road was an affirmation that witnessing could become action, that knowledge could transform into courage. Leo, trembling at first, now walked taller. The Corfu left behind had been a burden of his own making. Its absence freed him to taste not fear, but life in its rawest form. The fire in him no longer burned only for survival, it sang with possibility, with creation, with a new understanding that the self was not held in possessions, but in choice. They reached the far edge of the golden thread, the horizon beyond, shimmered with a landscape both strange and familiar, mountains that seemed to pulse with light, rivers that reflected storms yet to come, and valleys where shadows danced with sparks. It was a world remade, as if the storm had swept away the old and left only what had survived the trial, the resilient, the courageous, the willing. Mara turned to her companions. The taste of lightning is no longer a test, she said. It is a gift, and with it comes responsibility. We carry the storm, but we also carry its promise that fire can awaken, not destroy. That courage can heal, not harm. Thorne, Alex, and Leo each nodded, tasting the words as deeply as they had tasted the storm. The golden path behind them faded, leaving only memory, strength, and a trail of light upon the horizon. The storm had passed, the bridge was gone. But the lightning, its taste, its covenant, its fire remained within them, and with it, the world was theirs to walk anew. The storm had passed, but its echo remained in every heartbeat. Mara, Thorne, Alex, and Leo stood at the edge of the golden plain, their eyes reflecting the afterglow of the lightning's covenant. The abyss behind them, the broken bridge, the consumed aqueduct, these were not losses, but markers of transformation. Mara inhaled deeply, tasting the last traces of fire upon her tongue. She felt the threads of lightning still winding through her veins, each pulse a reminder of what had been endured and what had been gained. Courage, fear, pain, hope, they were no longer separate. They were fused, a single river of power flowing. Within her, she had crossed the storm and emerged not merely alive, but awakened. Thorne, silent as ever, finally exhaled. The weight of battle, of doubt, of survival had been transmuted into something else, clarity. The fire in him was no longer merely survival instinct, it was wisdom forged in pain. He understood that life's greatest storms were not to be resisted, but to be met, step by step, with eyes open and heart steady. Alex, the watcher, looked out over the horizon with quiet reverence. The storm had given him more than fire, it had given him witness turned to action. No longer could he stand only as observer, he was part of the world's unfolding, every choice now echoing with consequence. Even eternity, once cold and distant, now hummed with possibility.lio, trembling at first, now smiled through tears. The Corvo was gone, but he felt richer than ever. For the storm had stripped him bare of fear, of attachment, of hesitation and had left him only with the truth that life, like lightning, was fleeting, brilliant, and to be embraced fully. They walked forward together, the horizon before them radiant with gold and promise. The taste of lightning lingered, a reminder that every path forward would carry its echo. The world was vast, and storms would come again, but they were no longer merely travellers, they were covenant bearers, fire walkers, keepers of the storms. Memory. And as the first rays of dawn touched the land, the four of them understood, without speaking, that the bridge behind had been only the beginning. The storm was within them now, a living flame, and the journey ahead was theirs to ignite. The taste of lightning would never leave them. It was the fire of life, the song of courage, the spark that would carry them into every unknown horizon. The golden plain stretched endlessly before them, yet none moved immediately. They lingered, each absorbed in the resonance left by the storm. The air still hummed faintly with energy, a pulse that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the world itself. It was no longer terrifying, but intimate, a companion, a reminder that power was not only outside, but inside, coursing through them. Mara knelt, letting the final sparks of lightning drift from her fingertips to the earth. The taste lingered on her tongue, sharp and sweet, a reminder that the storm's fire had passed through her and left her unbound. She saw visions flicker, seeds sprouting through ash, rivers cutting new paths through mountains, a world remade not by force, but by endurance. This is what it means to bear fire, she realized. Not to wield it against others, but to nurture what grows from its warmth. Thorne knelt beside her, tracing a finger through the glowing soil. The taste of lightning clung to him, still, salty and alive, echoing the sweat and blood of a lifetime of battles. He saw not just the storms he had survived, but the faces of those he had failed and those he had protected. Every scar, every loss, every act of courage formed a ladder stronger than steel. And now, he understood, the fire of the storm did not destroy, it revealed. Alex sat a few paces away, staff resting across his lap. His eyes, still reflecting the golden light, scanned the horizon with a quiet intensity the lightning had taught him that observation alone was not enough. Witnessing required action. Every memory he carried, every truth he had catalogued, now demanded integration with life. The storm had shown him that even eternity must participate, must burn to remain alive. Leo remained standing, arms slightly outstretched, breathing deeply. The fire he had feared now flowed within him, not as threat, but as affirmation. The Corvo was gone, but its lessons remained. He understood, finally, that fear is merely a shadow cast by potential. By stepping into the lightning, he had reclaimed himself. He tasted power, yes, but more importantly, he tasted freedom. The four of them rose together. They did not speak, for words were unnecessary. The storm had already spoken in taste, in light, in fire. Their bodies, their minds, their spirits were all inscribed with its covenant. Each step forward across the golden plains was an echo of lightning, a song of resilience and rebirth. The horizon shimmered with promise. Mountains rose like molten sculptures, rivers flowed with threads of gold, and the wind carried whispers of storms yet to come. The world was not safe, it was not gentle, but it was alive, and they were alive within it, shaped by fire, tempered by lightning, and marked forever by the taste of what had been endured. Mara glanced at her companions. Thorne's gaze was steady, Alex's calm, and Leo's uncertain. Grin hinted at a newfound courage. She smiled faintly, tasting lightning one last time on her tongue. We have crossed fire and storm, she thought. Now we step into life itself. And so they moved forward, not merely as survivors, but as bearers of the storm's truth, walking embodiments of fire and courage. The taste of lightning forever theirs. The storm had settled, yet the world itself seemed to hum with the residue of its power. The air shimmered faintly, charged with energy that the human senses could barely grasp. Every breath tasted of ozone and potential. The golden thread that had carried them across the abyss had vanished, but the fire it left within each of them lingered alive, pulsing, and insistent. Mara lifted her hands, tracing invisible patterns through the air. Each movement left faint sparks dancing on her fingertips, echoes of the lightning that had made her covenant. She felt her senses sharpen, the hum of the earth beneath her feet, the pulse of distant rivers, the whisper of wind across mountains. The storm had not only marked her body, it had awakened her perception. She was attuned to the currents of the world, a living conduit of the storm's energy. Thorne crouched beside a jagged stone, pressing his palms to its wet surface. He felt it respond, faint tremors vibrating in tune with the heartbeat of his own chest. His body, once hardened only by battle, now moved with awareness of force and flow. Strength was no longer enough. He had learned rhythm, patience, and the precise timing to meet chaos with intention. Alex closed his eyes and let the storm's afterglow flow through him. Centuries of observation, of silent witness, now merged with action. Each memory, each choice he had catalogued over lifetimes, was a spark in the network of lightning that now thrummed through his veins. He realized the storm's lesson: to bear witness was not to remain passive, but to transform what one saw into life, into courage, into creation. Leo remained standing, Corfu abandoned, breath coming in ragged waves. The fear that had once consumed him was gone, replaced by a strange exhilaration. The storm had peeled away doubt, leaving the essence of choice raw and burning. He raised his hands, letting the taste of lightning fill him once more, feeling the fire of potential crackle through every nerve. The world was vast, and he was ready to step into it, not as a cautious guardian of memory, but as a participant in life's unpredictable, magnificent chaos. Together, they began to move forward, across the golden plains that stretched toward the horizon. The storm's remnants trailed behind them like faint threads of light, a reminder that the covenant they bore was ongoing. Each step was both a continuation and a promise that the power of the lightning was theirs to carry, to honor, and to share. Mara glanced back at the fading shadows of the destroyed bridge and crumbled aqueduct. They had crossed death, storm, and doubt. Now the horizon beckoned, vast and unknown, yet illuminated by the fire within. Thorne, Alex, and Leo followed her silently, each tasting lightning in their own way, sharp and sweet, bitter and freeing. A reminder that every trial had left them more alive, more connected, more capable. And as the first golden rays of dawn broke fully across the plains, they stepped into the light together, bound by the storm, marked by fire, and carrying forever the taste of lightning. The plains stretched endlessly, glowing faintly where the storm's remnants had touched. Yet it was not the light that held them, it was the memory of fire, the taste of lightning lingering in their veins, burning softly but insistently. Each step forward was measured, not with fear, but with reverence. The storm had passed, but its lessons had etched themselves into flesh, mind, and spirit. Mara paused, letting the wind brush her face. She could feel the threads of lightning intertwining with her heartbeat, a rhythm that was no longer foreign, but hers. This is the covenant, she thought, not a chain, not a burden, but a call. To live, to see, to bear fire responsibly. She inhaled deeply, savoring the electricity still on her tongue, the flavor of courage, of endurance, of life itself. Thorne's eyes scanned the horizon. The battles he had fought, the people he had lost, the nights spent fearing what he could not control, all of it had been necessary to bring him here. The storm had not erased his past, but reframed it, each scar a map, each loss a root of strength. The taste of lightning had taught him that survival was not victory. Understanding, action, and endurance were. Alex lowered his staff, his gaze distant yet clear. The storm had revealed the limits of observation alone. Knowledge without action was hollow, memories without courage were ash. Now, he carried within him the pulse of the storm, the thread of fire that bound witnessing to doing. Eternity itself could be participated in. Leo stretched his arms, feeling the fire coursing through him. He had once clung to relics, to the past, to fear as armor. The lightning had stripped him bare, and yet it had given him everything. He tasted power, freedom, life, each flavor a promise, and a warning. Brilliance can burn, but it also illuminates the path. Together, they moved toward the horizon, each step a quiet declaration that the storm had not been punishment, but a gift. Each crack of lightning, each roar of thunder, each gust of wind that had once threatened to destroy them now existed within them as knowledge, as courage, as fire. The plains shimmered golden beneath the dawn, and in the distance, mountains rose. Like molten sculptures, rivers ran threads of light, and valleys breathed with potential. They were no longer merely travelers, they were covenant-bearers, keepers of the taste of lightning. The storm was within them, a living flame, a pulse that would never fade. Mara glanced at her companions. Thorne, Alex, Leo each bore the storm in a unique way, yet all were bound by its fire. No words were needed. They had tasted lightning. They had endured. They had been transformed. The bridge, the abyss, the storm all behind them. Ahead stretched the unknown, illuminated by the light of what they now carried died, and in that light, they knew life itself was a storm. To walk through it was to taste lightning, and to carry it forever was to become something more than mortal. With a final glance at the fading storm, Mara whispered, "We have crossed fire, we have drunk the storm, and we live. Let the world remember our taste." They stepped forward together, the plains stretching endlessly before them, golden and alive, each footfall echoing with thunder and promise. The taste of lightning would never leave them. It was their covenant, their fire, their path. The storm had passed, yet its presence lingered in every nerve, every thought, every heartbeat. Mara stood silently, feeling the pulse of lightning within her, not as a memory, but as a living companion. Every nerve ending thrummed with energy, and she could sense the currents of the world, the wind whispering across plains, rivers carving valleys, the quiet hum of life itself. "The storm is no longer outside," she said softly, almost to herself. "It is inside us. It is who we are now." Thorne's eyes swept the horizon. He had crossed fire, endured thunder, and felt the abyss below the broken bridge. Yet it was not the danger that had changed him. It was the taste of lightning, lingering in his blood, a reminder that courage is forged not in safety, but in the confrontation with chaos. He could feel the storm shaping his very steps, his very thoughts. Each breath was now measured, intentional, as if the lightning guided him toward the path he was meant to walk. Alex, still calm and composed, closed his eyes. The storm had not only challenged them, it had revealed them. Centuries of observation, of watching without touching, now converged with understanding. The taste of lightning was a key, unlocking a potential he had never dared explore, the power to act, to shape, to participate in the pulse of life itself. Leo, trembling slightly, lifted his head. The coffer lay abandoned at the pillar's base, a symbol of his former hesitance. Its absence freed him. The fire inside him now burned with clarity and purpose, reminding him that life's brilliance comes from embracing the storm, not fleeing it. He tasted freedom and possibility, the raw energy of existence itself, and knew that he would never be the same. Together, they moved forward across the golden plains. Each step was infused with the energy of lightning, yet also tempered by reflection. The storm's taste lingered on their tongues, a covenant, a promise, a challenge. It was a reminder that power is not given lightly, and that courage without wisdom is incomplete. Mara glanced at her companions. Their faces reflected the storm's legacy. Thorne's steadfastness, Alex's calm insight, Leo's newfound boldness, and her own fire. They were no longer merely travelers. They were covenant bearers, keepers of lightning's gift, and witnesses to the storm's deeper truth. The horizon shimmered with possibility. Mountains rose like molten sculptures, rivers ran threads of golden light, and valleys breathed with life yet unseen. The world had been transformed, and so had they. Mara whispered to the wind, tasting lightning one last time. "We have drunk the storm, we have endured its fire, and now we carry its truth. The world is ours to walk, and we will honor it." And so they stepped forward, bound to the storm, marked by fire, and carrying the taste of lightning into every unknown horizon that lay ahead. The golden plains stretched before them endlessly, yet each step felt weighted with meaning. The storm's voice had faded into memory, but its presence lingered in the taste of lightning on their tongues, in the fire that thrummed in their veins, in the shadows of their own hearts. Every heartbeat echoed with possibility, every breath carried the scent of creation. Mara lifted her gaze to the horizon. She could feel the pulse of the storm not as threat, but as guidance. Every spark of lightning that had once threatened to consume her now lived inside her, coiling and unfurling like a serpent of light. She tasted its fire on her tongue, a flavor that was sharp, bitter, and sweet all at once, and understood. The covenant fully, fire is not merely power. It is responsibility, courage, and the seed of transformation. Thorne knelt, resting his hand on the warm earth. The taste of lightning lingered in him like salt and iron, a reminder of battles survived and lessons learned. He could feel the rhythm of the world, the push and pull of forces both seen and unseen. Every scar on his body, every wound etched in memory, had become a conduit for strength. The storm had not only tested him, it had revealed him. Alex closed his eyes and inhaled the charged air. The storm had shown him that witnessing is not enough. Action is the only proof of understanding. Every memory, every observation, every quiet reflection he had catalogued over lifetimes now fused with the fire inside him. He was no longer an observer, he was part of the world's pulse, its rhythm, its unfolding. Leo trembled, tasting the lingering energy of the storm in his mouth. The Corfa left behind was no longer a source of fear, but a reminder of what he had shared: hesitation, doubt, attachment. His body buzzed with the taste of lightning, a mixture of freedom and responsibility. He had learned that life's brilliance is found not in holding back, but in stepping forward, embracing fire even when it burns. Together, they walked across the plains, each step a testament to endurance, courage, and awakening. The storm's power, once external, now lived within them. Each pulse of lightning was mirrored in their hearts, a rhythm that connected them to one another, to the world, and to the promise of what lay ahead. Mara glanced at her companions. Thorne, steadfast and strong; Alex, calm and perceptive; Leo, fiery and renewed. They were no longer merely travelers. They were covenant bearers, living embodiments of the storm's fire. The horizon shimmered, mountains glowing faintly with the reflected light of their own hearts, rivers streaming like veins of gold, and valleys breathing with the promise of growth and possibility. The storm had not ended, it had become their guide, their companion, their covenant. Mara whispered, tasting lightning one last time, we carry the storm within us. Its fire is our path, our voice, our promise, and we will honor it with every step we take. The four of them moved forward together, the plains alive beneath their feet, the horizon stretching endlessly ahead. The taste of lightning would never leave them. It was their gift, their burden, and their covenant. The golden plains stretched beyond sight, yet their edges seemed to ripple with life, responding to the storm's echoes still humming within them. Every blade of grass shimmered faintly, every river of light pulsed with memory, and the wind carried whispers not of the past, but of possibility. The storm was gone, and yet it had never truly left. Mara walked first, feeling the energy coil through her like a second heartbeat. The taste of lightning lingered on her tongue, sharp, sweet, and intoxicating. Each pulse reminded her that fire was not mere destruction. It was clarity, it was vision. It was life itself, distilled into a single, piercing moment. She understood that to carry this flame was not to dominate the world, but to nurture its hidden rhythms, to awaken the dormant seeds buried beneath ash. Thorne followed, boots sinking slightly into the luminous soil. The storm's fire had transformed him. No longer did he move solely as soldier or protector. He moved as witness to power, tempered by endurance. Each scar on his body was now a channel for insight, every loss a guidepost. The taste of lightning was his teacher. Strength alone is meaningless. Wisdom and courage are forged in the crucible of fire. Alex strode with measured calm, yet the subtle energy within him vibrated with new understanding. The storm had revealed that observation must become action, knowledge must transform into creation. Centuries of watching and cataloguing now converge with this living fire, and he realized that eternity itself is participatory. The lightning within him was a compass, guiding thought into deed. Leo lingered slightly, hands trembling, eyes wide. The Corfa had been left behind, its absence now a symbol of liberation. The storm's taste lingered on his lips, fierce and liberating. Fear, once his constant companion, had dissolved. He felt the fire inside him as a promise rather than a threat. Every heartbeat sang of freedom, every breath carried potential. The storm had not only touched him, it had awakened him. Together, they walked the luminous plains, each step echoing with quiet thunder, each breath infused with electric life. The storm's power was no longer external, it was inseparable from them. They were no longer simply survivors, they were bearers, covenant holders, living embodiments of fire and lightning. Mara glanced at her companions, Thorne's grounded strength, Alex's measured insight, Leo's newfound audacity. They were united by the storm, yet each bore it uniquely. Words were unnecessary. Their shared understanding hummed in the air around them. The horizon shimmered with infinite possibility. Mountains glowed faintly like molten gold. Rivers flowed with threads of lightning. Valleys breathed life into the world. The storm had not ended, it had become their guide, their essence, their covenant. Mara whispered to the wind, tasting lightning one final time. We have crossed fire. We have drunk the storm. Now it lives in us. And with it, we will walk into every unknown horizon. And so they stepped forward together, golden plains beneath their feet, stormfire in their hearts, and the taste of lightning forever marking them, guiding them, and reminding them that life itself is a storm and only those who taste its fire truly live. The plains stretched endlessly, bathed in a soft golden light, yet the glow was not what commanded attention. It was the energy, the pulse of the storm lingering within them, tasting on their tongues, vibrating through their veins. It was no longer mere power, it was consciousness, awareness, life itself made palpable. Mara inhaled deeply, feeling the storm entwine with her heartbeat. The taste of lightning lingered, sharp, electric, intoxicating. She saw visions not of destruction, but of creation, roots pushing through ash, rivers carving new paths, stars igniting in silent harmony. Every spark whispered a promise. Fire does not consume without purpose, and those who bear it are bound to honor it. Thorne touched the ground with a firm hand, feeling the pulse of the storm beneath him. The lightning had taught him endurance. Yes, but also perspective. Strength alone is transient. Wisdom, patience, and courage are eternal. Every scar on his body, every loss in his past, had become a conduit for understanding. The storm had forged him, not in destruction, but in insight. Alex closed his eyes, letting the subtle hum of the storm fill his consciousness. Observation alone had never been enough. Now he understood. True witnessing requires transformation. The lightning had illuminated the spaces between moments, the threads connecting thought, action, and consequence. Eternity itself seemed participatory, a vast network of sparks and choices, and he was no longer merely a watcher, he was part of the current. Io trembled slightly, tasting the lingering fire in his mouth. The Corfa left behind was nothing. His fear dissolved in the storm's brilliance. Every step forward was a declaration of freedom, every heartbeat a spark of courage. He felt himself both fragile and infinite, mortal yet incandescent, alive. In the raw sense, the storm had burned away hesitation, leaving only essence. Together, they walked across the golden plains. Each step resonated like a quiet thunderclap. Each breath carried the storm's taste. They were no longer travelers. They were covenant bearers, living conduits of fire and lightning. The horizon stretched outward, mountains shimmering, rivers flowing with golden threads, valleys breathing with potential. The storm had not ended, it had become their guide, their companion, their covenant. Each spark in the air, each flicker in the distance, was both a reminder and a call to honor fire, to bear it responsibly, to walk forward with courage and insight. Mara whispered to the wind, "We have crossed fire, we have drunk the storm. It lives within us now, and with it, we will illuminate every shadow, ignite every unknown horizon." They stepped forward together, stormfire in their hearts, taste of lightning on their tongues, golden plains beneath their feet. The storm was eternal in them, a covenant not of chains, but of light. Life itself was a storm and only those who embraced its fire could truly live. The plains before them stretched like liquid gold, endless, yet each step was anchored in purpose. The storm's roar had vanished, but its pulse remained, a subtle vibration threading through their bones, a taste of lightning lingering on their tongues. It was not merely power, it was life, awareness, transformation. Mara inhaled the charged air. Every spark that had danced across her skin now lived inside her, a constant reminder that fire is not destruction but revelation. She could feel the threads of existence, the hidden currents of life and death, weaving around her like invisible lightning. Each pulse told her a story, of courage, of endurance, of creation rising from ruin. The covenant she bore was not a burden, it was awakening. Thorne placed his hand on the glowing soil, feeling it respond to his presence. The taste of lightning had carved understanding into his very marrow. Strength alone had never been enough. Now he felt the rhythm of resilience, the cadence of endurance, the melody of courage that moves quietly beneath the roar of battle. The storm had not merely tested him, it had taught him how to carry fire without losing himself to it. Alex closed his eyes, allowing the subtle hum of the storm to fill his mind. Observation had been his life, but now witnessing required participation. Every memory, every reflection, every lesson from centuries past converged with the lightning inside him. He was no longer a passive watcher. He was part of the world's heartbeat, connected to every spark, every shadow, every unfolding moment. Leo stood slightly apart, tasting the lingering fire on his tongue. The Corfu left behind was nothing, fear dissolved into the brilliance of the storm. Every pulse of lightning in his veins sang freedom, possibility, and audacity. He felt both fragile and infinite, mortal and radiant. The storm had stripped away hesitation, leaving essence the pure, unbroken self ready to walk through the world's unknown fires. Together, they moved across the luminous plains. Each step resonated with quiet thunder, each breath carried the storm's essence. The horizon stretched endlessly, mountains glimmering like molten gold, rivers streaming like veins of light, valleys breathing potential. The storm had not ended, it had become a living guide within them, a covenant of insight and courage. Mara glanced at her companions. Thorne's steadfastness, Alex's insight, Leo's newfound daring. They were united not merely by survival, but by the storm itself. Words were unnecessary. The taste of lightning bound them in shared understanding. Mara whispered to the wind, tasting the storm one last time. We have drunk fire. We have crossed lightning, it lives within us now. And with it, we will illuminate every shadow, ignite every unknown horizon. They stepped forward together, golden plains beneath their feet, storm fire in their hearts, taste of lightning forever marking them. Life itself was a storm, and only those who embrace its fire can truly live. The golden plains stretched infinitely, yet each step seemed alive, humming with the storm's lingering pulse. Lightning was no longer merely a force of destruction, it had become their guide, inscribed within their bodies and spirits. The taste of lightning lingered on their tongues, sharp and sweet, reminding them of fire endured and power earned. Mara paused, closing her eyes. The storm's energy coursed through her veins, connecting her to every trembling leaf, every ripple of water, every distant mountain. She felt the covenant of Prometheus not as chains, but as flame lighting the way. She had drunk fire, crossed lightning, and now carried its essence, courage tempered with wisdom, power guided by purpose. Thorne's gaze swept across the horizon. Each scar, each battle, each loss had been a lesson. The storm had merely amplified it. He felt the rhythm of the earth beneath his feet, the pulse of life around him, the invisible threads linking action to consequence. Strength alone had never been enough, but now it had become a melody intertwined with insight, patience, and clarity. Alex breathed deeply, sensing the subtle currents of the storm weaving through him. Observation had been his calling, but the lightning had shown him that witnessing is only meaningful when coupled with action. Time, memory, choice, they were all threads of the same tapestry, and he was no longer a mere spectator. The storm had made him participant, guardian, and guide. Leo lifted his hands to the sky, tasting the lingering sparks on his tongue. The Corfu left behind was nothing. The storm had freed him from fear. Every pulse in his body sang of freedom, audacity, and life's raw potential. He understood that true courage is not absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward. Despite it, the storm had awakened him to the brilliance of existence itself. Together, they began walking, the plains glowing beneath their feet, the horizon alive with promise. Mountains shimmered like molten gold, rivers ran with threads of light, valleys breath with possibility, the storm had become more than a trial. It had become a compass, a covenant, a guide. Mara glanced at her companions, Thorne's grounded strength, Alex's calm insight, Leo's newfound boldness. They were bound by fire, lightning, and shared understanding. Words were unnecessary. The storm had spoken, and they had answered. Mara whispered to the wind, tasting lightning one final time. We carry the storm within us. Its fire is our guide, our covenant, and our path, and we will honor it with every step forward. They moved onward together, storm fire in their hearts, golden plains beneath their feet, the taste of lightning forever marking them. Life itself was a storm, and only those who embrace its fire can truly walk forward. The plain shimmered endlessly, golden yet alive, humming with the storm's residual pulse. It was no longer an external force to fear. It was embedded in their blood, their bones, their consciousness. Each breath carried the scent of charged air, each heartbeat echoed with lightning's rhythm. Mara lifted her hands, feeling faint sparks dancing across her skin. The taste of lightning lingered on her tongue, sharp, electric, yet strangely comforting. It spoke of courage, of endurance, of the power to transform not only the world, but oneself. She realized that fire was not merely destruction, it was insight, illumination, a key to understanding what lay beneath the surface of life. Thorne knelt, pressing his hand into the glowing earth. The storm had tested his body, but now it tempered his spirit. Strength alone had been insufficient. The storm had taught him rhythm, patience, and the quiet power of resilience. The lightning's taste, salty and vivid, was a reminder that every scar, every battle, every loss was a channel for wisdom. The storm had revealed that power is only meaningful when guided by insight. Alex closed his eyes, sensing the currents weaving through him. Observation had always been his path, yet the storm had revealed that witnessing alone is incomplete. True understanding demands action, courage, and connection. Each pulse of lightning within him was a thread linking memory to choice, thought to deed. He was no longer a mere observer, he had become part of life's living pattern, a spark in the infinite with Io raised his head, tasting the fire lingering in the air. The call for abandon behind him was irrelevant now. The storm had stripped away fear and hesitation, leaving only essence, raw, brilliant, infinite. Each pulse of lightning sang freedom, audacity, and life itself. He felt fragile and immortal. At once, alive in a way he had never known, they began walking, side by side, across the golden plains. Every step resonated like quiet thunder. Each breath carried the taste of lightning. Mountains glimmered like molten gold, rivers flowed with threads of light, valleys pulsed with unseen life. The storm had become a companion, a covenant, a guide. Mara glanced at her companions. Thorne's grounded strength, Alex's contemplative insight, Leo's bold vitality. They were bound together by the storm. Words were unnecessary, their shared understanding hummed through the air. As if the lightning itself spoke through them, Mara whispered softly, we carry fire, lightning, and courage within us. The storm is no longer outside, it is who we are. And with it, we will step into every unknown horizon. They moved forward together, storm fire in their hearts, golden plains beneath their feet, the taste of lightning forever marking them. Life itself was a storm, and only those who embrace its fire can truly live. The plains stretched beyond sight. Yet every step resonated with the storm's lingering pulse. Lightning was no longer a force outside them, it had become part of their bodies, their thoughts, their very souls. The taste of it lingered on their tongues, a sharp, sweet reminder that fire is never merely destructive. It is revelation, insight, and the spark that awakens life from its slumber. Mara inhaled the charged air, feeling each spark of lightning coil through her like a living thread. She understood that the storm had been a mirror, every fear, every doubt, every hesitation reflected back at her, only to be transformed into clarity. Fire is a covenant, she realized, not to wield for domination, but to honor through courage, wisdom, and action. The taste of lightning was her oath, binding her to the world's hidden rhythms. Thorne pressed his palms to the glowing soil. His scars and wounds, once reminders of pain, now thrummed with energy, channels for understanding. The storm had taught him that strength alone is hollow. Resilience, patience, and insight give it meaning. Every pulse of lightning within him echoed the truth. Survival is not the measure of a life, but how boldly one faces the fire that tests it. Alex closed his eyes, letting the subtle hum of the storm fill his consciousness. Centuries of observation, cataloguing, and silent witnessing converged with the lightning inside him. Knowledge alone is not power. Action is. Memory alone is not truth. Integration is. He was no longer merely a watcher, he was part of the living weave of the world, a spark among countless others, shaping the flow of time and consequence. Leo lifted his head, tasting the fire lingering in the air. The coffer abandoned behind him was nothing. It had been a barrier, and now it was gone. Fear had dissolved into brilliance. Every pulse of lightning in his veins sang of freedom, possibility, and life itself. He was fragile, yet infinite, mortal, yet incandescent. The storm had awakened him to the raw essence of existence. Together, they walked across the golden plains, each step echoing with quiet thunder. The horizon shimmered with promise, mountains glowing like molten gold, rivers running threads of light, valleys breathing unseen potential. The storm was no longer a trial, it was their companion, a covenant of insight and courage, an eternal flame within. Mara glanced at her companions. Thorne's steadfastness, Alex's calm perception, Leo's audacious energy, they were bound by the fire of the storm. Words were unnecessary. The taste of lightning spoke louder than any voice. Mara whispered to the wind, "We carry the storm within us. Its fire is our guide, our covenant, our path. We will honor it with every step we take into the unknown." And so they moved forward together, stormfire in their hearts, golden plains beneath their feet, the taste of lightning marking them forever. Life itself is a storm, and only those who embrace its fire can truly live. The golden plains stretched endlessly before them, yet the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with life, vibrating with the storm's residual energy. Each step carried weight not of burden, but of awakening. The taste of lightning lingered on their tongues, sharp and sweet, a reminder that the fire they had endured was no longer outside. It was within. Mara lifted her hands toward the sky, feeling sparks of electricity coil and dance along her fingers. The storm had been more than a trial, it had been a revelation. Every fear, every hesitation, every shadow of doubt had been transmuted into clarity and vision. Fire was not simply power. Fire was insight, courage, and creation. The taste of lightning was her covenant, a living reminder that she was both guardian and participant in the world's unfolding. Thorne knelt, pressing his palm into the glowing soil. The storm had carved understanding into his very marrow. Strength alone had never sufficed. Now he felt the rhythm of endurance, the melody of patience, and the quiet power of resilience. Every scar, every wound, every past loss had become a channel for wisdom. Lightning had revealed that true courage is forged not in victory, but in the willingness to face what burns, to walk through fire and emerge enlightened. Alex closed his eyes, letting the storms hum with through his consciousness. Observation alone had never been enough. Now, memory, choice, and action intertwined within him like threads of living light. He was no longer a passive watcher. He was part of the world's heartbeat, a spark in its infinite web, shaping the rhythm of events with each thought and decision. Leo raised his arms, tasting the lingering fire on his lips. The coffer left behind was nothing. Fear had dissolved into brilliance. He felt both fragile and infinite, mortal yet radiant. Every pulse of lightning in his veins sang freedom, audacity, and the raw essence of existence itself. The storm had awakened him to the truth. To live fully, one must embrace the fire, the chaos, and the unknown. Together, they walked forward, the golden plains alive beneath their feet, echoing with quiet thunder. The horizon shimmered with infinite possibility, mountains glowing faintly like molten gold, rivers streaming threads of light, valleys breathing potential. The storm had become more than a trial, it had become their guide, their covenant, their eternal flame. Mara glanced at her companions. Thorne's steadfastness, Alex's wisdom, Leo's fiery courage, they were bound by lightning, yet each bore it uniquely. Words were unnecessary. Their shared understanding resonated through the very air around them. Mara whispered softly. Tasting lightning one last time, we carry the storm within us. Its fire is our path, our covenant, our guide, and with it, we will illuminate every unknown horizon we step into. And so they move forward together, stormfire in their hearts, golden plains beneath their feet, the taste of lightning forever marking them. Life itself was a storm, and only those who embrace its fire can truly live.